We have our featured speaker in the purple shirt. He said I don't need to introduce him, but I am Herb. He gave me a little bio, so I'm going to just go ahead and give it, and then he can fill in the blanks. Herb is a retired UT professor and industry consultant that accidentally became an expert on the impact of privatization on our public schools and the real problems that are causing our public schools to generally underperform. His current mission is to bring forward objective evidence to shine a light on those problems in order for the public to understand the actions necessary to fix those problems over the next few years and put Texas back on the right track towards a properly educated post-K through 12 population. So with that, let us welcome Herb. I'm sure he'll fill that in.
Thank you very much. Okay. As a former professor, I probably don't need the mic either. Okay, so let's make sure this little rascal works. And it does. Okay, so a couple more things about me. I mean, I'm a retired UT professor. I'm a techie. Okay, I'm a computer scientist, computer engineer. That's what I'm best known for. But the part that you don't know about me is that for 5 decades, I've also been a high-tech industry consultant. And my job has been with Fortune 500 companies to go into those companies and diagnose their systems and tell them what's wrong with them. And so in order to do that, I had to develop the technique called systems analysis. And what I decided to do is to apply that technique to our public schools. Okay? And I'm coming at it, if you will, from an outside view. Because the way you do systems analysis is you start on the outside and you look in. Okay? And so that provides a slightly different perspective than those of you who have been on the inside and have seen these problems. And I'm super glad you're here. Okay? Because I'm going to give you some data that you can really use, I think. Yeah, but the way I got into all this was quite accidental. I ended up fighting in the great voucher war of the early part of this year, trying to stop the voucher program. It didn't work, but I did manage to get kicked out of a number of representative offices by trying to show them the harm that they were going to cause to their constituents. So, and they didn't like that. So, but I've turned my attention since then to focus at the real mission, which is saving our public school system, because it is in jeopardy. Okay? And so what you're going to hear today is basically that kind of systems analysis. And the other part, is to understand that I believe that knowledge is power. Okay? And I also believe that common knowledge is really powerful, and especially when it's based on a commonly held set of evidence and facts and data. And that's what I'm going to show you today. Okay? All right, so let's get started with my systems analysis view. And by the way, feel free to ask me questions as we go, because I'm going to ignore the time limit anyway. Okay, so let's start off with a little paragraph which is embedded in the Texas Constitution. Okay, not many people have actually seen this, but there it is. And it was put in there in 1876. And it basically says, it shall be the duty of the legislature of the state to establish and make suitable provision for the support and maintenance of an efficient system of public free schools. Well, I'm here to tell you that they haven't been doing that. And they haven't been doing that for a while, for at least 3 decades. Okay? And so that right there, one of the things we know is our state leaders are off track. And what it's led to is a series of problems that I'm going to show you. All right? And again, this is an outsider's view. All right? So I'm not going to talk to you about all the stuff you already know. Well, you may know this first one, that we're underfunded. But I'm going to show you by how much we're underfunded and how we got there. And I'm going to give you the data that you're going to need to explain this to your next door neighbor or the person that you run into like I do. The reason I wear this t-shirt is I go into the middle of Walmart in Marble Falls and I stand there. And I wait for people who are generally uninformed out there to come up and say, what's that all about? And then I get to go, whoop, then I give my elevator speech. Okay, so that's really, okay, so the underfunding part, we're going to talk about that problem. You probably already know pretty much about that. I know you do. What you may not have thought about is this problem, the fact that we're also overregulated. All right, and I'm going to show you by how much we're overregulated, because I've developed a metric to show that. And what that overregulation is doing is basically causing the inefficiencies and the inflexibilities that are currently in our public school system. And so we need to solve that problem as well as the funding problem. Okay, we're also undervalued in Texas with regard to the benefit to the public that public education provides. And I've developed a metric to show you that. Okay? Because that's a problem. That's a big problem. All right, well, unfortunately, we're also underperforming on the basics. And I'm going to show you the evidence of that. And a lot of that is maybe perhaps caused by the first three things, but perhaps not. But in any case, we need to pay attention to fixing that problem too. Okay? To make sure our kids are actually getting the kind of education that we want from an academic perspective. And then the last one, which is the one I've been fighting for a while, is this misguided privatization scheme that's being foisted upon us. Now, the real impact hasn't hit you yet. Okay, but it did get passed into law, and you know the rules are out there, and they're gearing up the mechanism to make all this happen, and the advertising is starting. Okay, you haven't seen a big billboard yet, but you will. Okay, for private schools advertising for voucher students to come there. So we're going to talk about that one too. Okay, that one's been in the news. All right, and of course these problems are happening at the local level in different ways, and they're not being felt equally. And I'm going to talk today about Lago Vista, particularly, so that you can see the local impact that's being caused by these problems. Okay, and at this point, there's no plan to fix these problems. Okay, our state leaders have no plan. In fact, they haven't even identified most of these problems. They don't even realize that they have these problems. But I do have a plan, and we'll get to that. All right, let's talk about the underfunding. So, over on the left is the level of funding per student at the national average across all the states, $17,700 per student per year. And look where Texas is, on the right. That's how much we're underfunded. Now, okay, yeah, the legislature came along and passed this great big wonderful bill where they said they gave you $8.5 billion, blah, blah, blah. What that amounted to was $742 per student per year, okay, because we've got 5.5 million students. You can do the math. All right, and so now, well, we're only $3,500 per student per year under the national average. Okay, that's how much we're underfunded. That's a good metric to think about. Okay? And as it turns out, the Texas state government supplies the lowest amount per student of any state at 31%. We're on the very bottom. We're 50th in state support for public education. Did you know that? Yeah. You did? Well, okay, good. All right, so it's pretty darn low. It's very low. And I have the bad news I have to tell you is here in Lago Vista, it's only 6%. Only 6% of your funding in the Lago Vista School District comes from state sources. That should, huh?
I knew that too.
You knew that too. Good. Come on, here you go. Here you go.
Why is it so low here?
Well, I'll get there. I'm going to show you the actual data in a little bit. But let me cover the big problems. Okay. Well, here's how we got there. And let me roll back to a little before, about 2011. Okay, and this is the state share of public school funding over the last decade and a half. Okay, and you can see that back there in 2011, the state was supplying 48% of the funding, and then 45%, and then look what happened. And now we're down to 31%, which is where we currently are. And amazingly enough, Greg Abbott took office right here. And at that point, right there in 2015, when he took office, all right, the state was supplying 45%. The local resources were supplying 45%, and the feds were supplying 10%. We were equal partners, okay, at that point in time until Greg Abbott took office. And then look what happened, okay? And here's what happened to the local share because of that. Because the state share had to go down, the local share had to go up. So now, on average, across the state, okay, the local property taxes are supplying over 50% of the funding for your ISDs, whereas the state is only supplying 31%. Okay? So that's what's happened, and that's a good explanation of why your property taxes are high. Okay, so my plan is basically I want to restore the state share back to the pre-Abbott levels. Let's get back to a point where the state and the local are partners in public education. Okay? And we don't have to do that by cutting we can cut property taxes is the point I want to make. Okay, so rebalance the funding, we can still lower the property taxes. Okay, but we got to get the state to step up to their share and become, once again, full partners, equal partners in public education, because they're not. Okay? Now, let me talk about overregulation. How many of you have ever seen the Texas State Education Code? It's almost 5,000 pages. Okay? There's me showing it off up in McKinney a couple weeks ago. Okay? It's stacked about that high. It weighs 51 pounds. Yeah. 51 pounds for almost 5,000 pages. I even made a display case for it. Okay, so that's my display case, but I didn't want to schlep it in here because it was too heavy. But anyway, that's what it looks like. Okay, so that's a lot. And you know what? A good chunk of that are what are called unfunded mandates. There's a bunch of stuff in there that they created rules for and never funding. And then there's a bunch of stuff in there that just causes bureaucracy and waste. And it's all in there. And who put it in there? Your state leaders. Okay? Now, let's compare that, if you will, to the state rules and regulations for charter schools. 233 pages. A little different. 5,000 pages, 233 pages. Okay? No wonder the charter school's a little more flexible. They don't have as many rules that are burdening them. Oh, how about private schools? You'll like this one. Texas rules and regs for private schools, 5 pages. 5 pages, and half of the items in there are optional. Yeah, by the way, I've got these documents out in my car, but I didn't want to bring them in. So this is a big problem. This is a huge problem. All right, this is the problem that is causing the inefficiencies in your public schools that our state leaders are turning around and blaming us for. It's their fault, and this is the proof. Okay. My goal, of course, is to streamline this. And, of course, the way I would streamline the education code is to throw it out, start it over, and throw out the TEA along with it. But that's a little radical, okay? Maybe not.
Is it?
Maybe not. Maybe not radical. Okay, let's talk about the fact that public education is undervalued. Now, what I mean by this, okay, if you take a look at state and local funding together as a ratio to the total income of the wealth of the state, and measure that gives you a pretty good metric of what the value of public education is to the state as a whole. Okay? And you know what the national average is? 3.25%. 3.25% of the total income in the United States is being spent on public education. Okay? Guess what it is in Texas?
0.0.
No, but it is below the national average. It's 3. Okay? So, again, relative to the national average, we are undervalued in how we support our public schools. Okay? Not good. We can do better than that, can't we? Okay? Guess who's worst? Arizona. Okay, at about 2. And guess who's on the very bottom, worse than Arizona? Yes, very good. Who said that? Oh, you've been reading my stuff. She reads my stuff every morning. That's why. Okay. Yeah, I know you do. Anyway, Florida's the very bottom in the value that they put on public education. And guess what? By coincidence, Arizona and Florida have the largest voucher programs in the nation. And that's where we're going. And that's why the voucher program is going to kill us if we don't kill it first. Okay? So we're heading in that direction. And this is, by the way, this is the reason why I have this bumper sticker on my car. No, I do. Go out, you can look. It's out in the driveway. Okay? So that's not where we want. What I want to do is to raise, obviously, our investment, our value above the national average. All right? Why should we be below average? Okay? Well, we're below average in all these other metrics too. All right. Now this is the one you're not going to like. Okay? What?
I was just going to ask.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Do you know the average? What states are above the?
So above us?
Above the national average.
Oh yes, of course.
Okay.
Yes, sure. I mean, on the very top is Massachusetts.
Okay. Yeah.
What percentage are they?
They're at 5, aren't they?
Maybe even more than that. I'm thinking maybe 6. But I'm not positive. I can find that out for you. Okay? I mean, I can point you to the website where you can get the data yourself. Okay, underperforming. So let's take a look at some of the metrics that deal with academic performance. All right, and the biggest problem that I see today in our state is what I call the critical thinking skills problem. Okay? And we want the kids that come out of our K through 12 system to be able to think logically and make good decisions. And the number one indicator of that is how proficient they are in math. And here's what the NAP Nations Report Card is telling us. Okay? They're telling us that today only 24% of our students in Texas are proficient in math. Okay? And that's again below the national average. And look at the trend. Ever since 2011, okay, we've been going downhill. Now, I know about this trend. You would think our state leaders would know about this trend. Okay? So that's one. That is probably the biggest problem. The other one is literacy. Okay? Now this one we've been poor at for a while, and it's been pretty well known. This is not new. Okay? And again, you would think our state leaders would know about this problem. And my question is, why aren't they solving these problems rather than making us post the 10 Commandments and interjecting Bible stories into our curriculum and all the other darn things that the state leaders are trying to do? Okay? Why are they not focused on solving these problems? Okay?
Focus on blaming.
Well, yeah, blaming and shaming. They're very good at that. Now, here's another metric to show you, the SAT scores. Okay? And this is pretty relevant because in Texas this year, the class of 2025, 73% of them took the SAT. All right? And their average score was 978. The national average is 1,028. We're 50 points below the national average. These are our graduates. Not good, huh? Not good. So, I mean, there's no good reason to be super proud of what we're doing in our public schools, but most people don't know this. Okay? Many parents are satisfied with what they're getting, but they don't know. There's so many people out there that are totally uninformed about our public schools. Okay? Well, in Lago Vista, you're a little better off. Average SAT score is 997. Well above the Texas average, well below the national average. Okay, so Lago Vista doing pretty well. Not too shabby. Okay, well what I would like to do, at least, is to raise our proficiencies above the national averages. Okay, I mean, I'm not going to run around like Governor App and say we're going to be number one. We're going to be number one. Well, let's start by getting to be above average. You know? Really. Okay, now let's talk about privatization, because this is the hot one. This has been the hot one for the last year. It will continue to be the hot one until we kill it. Okay? So Governor Abbott just recently, at a rally, said school choice affects competition. But he didn't say whether it was positively or negatively. Okay? It happens to be negatively. Okay? Our public schools, our private schools, homeschools are all going to be better. Okay, because of the ability to choose the education path for each. That, my friends, is total bullshit. That is another example of the kind of BS that's been regularly coming out of our governor's mouth talking about this whole thing. Okay? And he opens his mouth, and Jeff Yass speaks, or whatever. Okay, the universal school voucher programs, the reason that isn't true is because they've never worked before. All you have to do is look at the other states that have been trying this program, and you can see they're all failing. And so why would he believe that all these things are going to be better? This is the all boats rise theory at work. Okay? And in fact, what they turn out to be is welfare for the well-off. And that's likely what will happen here. Okay? And what the governor has done is he's turned this thing into a popularity contest by giving away free money. Now, who's not going to take free money? If the governor is stupid enough to give billions of dollars away, who's not going to take it? And I don't blame them. I don't blame them. And if it helps somebody, God bless them. That's great. Okay? Anyway. All right. He also said that his plans won't stop here, and I believe him. Okay? And he said more about what he plans to do. Okay? But his real goal is to make all the public schools private. That's his real goal. He won't say that, but that's his goal. Now think about that. Okay, so my goal is to kill it quickly. I couldn't stop it during session, but there is a way to kill it. And I'll talk about that when we get there. So here's my one slide summary of the new Texas Educational Freedom Act. Okay, the new program that is about to come. It's already spinning up. The infrastructure, the system is being built right now. Oh, and by the way, the governor says things like, it's a $1 billion program, drop in the bucket, blah, blah, blah. Your House representative says the same thing, blah, blah, blah. Again, yes, it's a $13 billion program. It's not a $1 billion program. It's a $13 billion program, and it triples in size here in school year 27. This is when the shirt hits the fan, right here, okay? Right there, when it triples in size. And that's planned. Oh, and by the way, for those of you who aren't following this, did anybody notice that they changed the name of the program? It used to be called the Education Savings Account Program, not Education Freedom Account. Guess what? Somebody figured out there aren't going to be any savings. There will be no savings. This will cost us, okay? All right, so here's what I think is going to happen. This is my prediction of what's going to happen next year based on what I've seen in the other states. Okay? So there's about $920 million that's going to be available for these education freedom accounts. All right? And so somewhere between 92,000 and 460,000 people are going to be able to be funded by this. I predict that the program will be oversubscribed by 2 to 3x because that is a goal. And I'll tell you why that's a goal in a second. Okay, 70% of the awards are going to go to students who are already enrolled in private school because that's been the history. That's what we saw in Arizona, Florida, Indiana, Ohio. Okay, 30% of the awards will go to homeschoolers and those who leave the public schools. Okay, let's just say, for the sake of argument, that 110,000 slots get funded in kind of this proportion. Then what the bottom line says is $800 million of these dollars are going to go to fund students that are not currently being funded by the state of Texas or by you. Brand new welfare program, $800 million, okay, to fund kids' education who are not currently being funded by the state. This drives the conservatives crazy. This is why when we did the testifying against this bill, half or more of the people arguing against it were all Republicans. It wasn't Democrats, okay? It was a good mixture, okay? And this is why, okay? Because what that's going to do is make government bigger. That's going to grow the government in order to do this, and it's going to put more people on the government nickel. Conservatives don't like that. All right, let's talk about Lago Vista. So remember I said I promised you I would show you some local stuff. So let's take a look at what's been happening to Lago Vista ISD. So you've been running a budget deficit for the past couple of years. Okay, last year it was $1 million deficit. You managed to cut that down to a little more than $250,000. Okay, there's the number of students that are in your school district. Here's how much money is going to be lost every time a student leaves. Okay, and if you just take a modest projection of 1% of students leaving the school district, then that's going to be an impact. Okay? Not a huge impact, but a pretty good size impact. And on top of all the other deficit spending. So just put a little more pressure on the school district, okay? But the real shit hits the fan out here if the Abbott plan goes into effect. He's planning on eliminating all property taxes, which unfortunately takes away 93% of the funds that go to Lago Vista ISD, and that will kill them. They will be out of business immediately if the Abbott plan goes through. Sound good?
Yeah, great.
Yeah? Sound good. Okay. Yeah, and here's basically what this means. I took this right off of the Lago Vista ISD website. Okay, I mean, the cuts are already being made, programs are being killed, staff is being laid off, all these things are happening, programs are being cut. For those of you who have kids in the school district, you probably are already aware of this. It's all happening right now. And that's the stress that's been built up from many, many years of underfunding, overregulation, undervalue, da, 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 da. Okay? All right, and so here's where Lago Vista is today. They're a C district. Okay? And unfortunately, for the last couple of years, they've been going down rather than up, but only slightly. Okay? So, I mean, they're not in danger of failing, but they're not exactly thriving either. So I think you can safely say there's room for improvement. And then, when the vouchers come along, the question is, Well, if students were to leave Lago Vista ISD, where would they go? Well, it turns out I did an analysis of all the private schools that are in the area. So these are all the private schools that are not kindergarten or pre-K, all right, that are in Leander, Cedar Park, and Austin. And there's about 60 of them, all right, and currently today, they have about 17,645 students in them as of today. So there is plenty of capacity to attract away the students that are currently in your ISD. Yeah?
Does that count charters?
No. These are just private schools. Okay? Yeah, private only. The charter schools is a different thing. I'm not really talking much about that because it's kind of a blended, anyway, it's a different beast. It's a different beast. Okay, so here's what to look out for next year. You're going to be watching to see what's going to happen in this privatization movement as people start signing up in January, I think is when they open up the applications. Schools are already talking about this. There's always already some internal advertising. Okay, what you want to watch for is how many students apply to this program. Okay, and then how many are accepted. How many of the accepted were already enrolled in private school? How many public school students went home? You remember all those kids that have been truant? Okay, all those kids that haven't been going to school? Guess what? The governor's going to give them $2,000 to stay home. Yeah. All they have to do is apply. All right? Those absentee problems. Okay, and then the question will be, how many are left in the waiting line after they exhaust the initial funding? Because that's the key. That is the thing that will trigger the request for the new round of funding next session. That's what it says in the law. Okay? You look at the size of the waiting line, and you use that as your basis of estimate for your request to the legislature for how much money you want next session, for the next biennium. That's what the law says. And so that's why they're going to run up the waiting line. Okay, and that's how they're going to justify tripling the size of the program. Okay, how many students left the program and went back to public school? Oh, they're not counting that. The whole accountability thing in this program is a mess. And here's another good one. Watch out for how much dark money has come into the program from unidentified sources via gifts, grant. Oh, I misspelled that. I'm sorry. Yeah. My bad. Okay? Well, guess what? Oops, they're not required to report that. And that's in the law. Make sense to you? Okay? Our comptroller is allowed to solicit and receive grants, gifts, and donations that go into this program, and he doesn't have to identify the source of those funds or report that to the public. Sound good to y'all?
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, sounds really good to me, too. Okay? How much additional money has been injected into the program by the governor from sources other than appropriations? In the law, there's actually 5 sources of money going into this program, only one of which is appropriations. The other 4 are under the control of the governor to take money from other places and put it into this program, and you're never going to see it. Okay? So the governor can grow this program. He can take money out of his own slush fund. He probably won't, but he could. Okay? And grow the program, and you'll never know it until it's too late. All right, how many new pop-up schools are going to magically appear? And where are they going to appear? Yes, ma'am.
What's the concern about money that's coming in that we don't know about? Is it that you think?
Because it's going to be driven by super PACs and special interest groups, and you know who's going to line up to give this free money to our government. It's going to be the Christian nationalists. It's going to be Tim Dunn, Ferris Wilks.
Are they going to be influencing what kind of education these students?
Duh. You think? Actually, they're going to be doing that, and they're also going to be the investors hidden behind the pop-up schools. Because that's where the money is going to be made. Okay? And this is, again, it's going to be dark money. It'll be filtered through super PACs, and you'll never see it. Okay? All right, and then, of course, there's the new thing, which you probably have seen published recently, Governor Abbott trying to get rid of all property taxes that fund the public schools. He's stated that, and I'm going to show you his plan for that. So here's Abbott's 4-point plan to kill our public schools. These are the 4 points. Have you all seen this in published? Okay. It's recent. Okay. Well, first part of the plan, he's going to require 2/3 of voters' approval for all local property tax increases. You want to increase your property taxes so that you can supply more funding to your schools that he's underfunding? 2/3. That's a pretty high hurdle, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay? And then, so he set it high for a reason. Okay? The second thing is allow just 15% of registered voters, all right, to put a measure on the ballot to roll back your existing property taxes. 15%. Pretty low bar, huh? So far, so good. This is his plan. Okay? This is his plan. You can read about it. And he's doing this for the purpose of to constrain growth and spending by local governments and the ISDs. He says that. And that's exactly what he's doing. Squeeze. Okay. All right. And then he's going to limit local spending further to some kind of a formula that nobody has seen. Okay? Plus inflation or 3.5%, whichever is less. Remains to be seen. Okay? And then there's this one. Right? He is going to give the voters a chance to put through a constitutional amendment, all right, to eliminate all school property taxes. That's what he wants to do. And he can get it on, he'll be able to get it on a ballot next time the constitutional amendments come around. And oh, by the way, which is really interesting, he's going to push for this to be a constitutional amendment, but he wouldn't put a constitutional amendment on last time to vote on vouchers. He refused to do that. But he'll do this. Yes, ma'am.
Doesn't that undermine the recapture funding?
Oh my God.
The general fund council?
Yeah. Oops, am I my half an hour? Oh, good, I can ignore that. Okay, so the other thing part about his plan is it doesn't include where the funding might come from if he does that. Okay? Now, contrast that with my plan, which apparently got squished a bit by your Mac. Okay, so I have a 4-point plan for saving the public schools that is the opposite.
Blame the Mac, not the guy who made the slides.
Yeah, right.
Blame the slides.
Okay, so point 1 of my 4-point plan is the EFA program, kill it quickly. And we'll have an opportunity to do that next year. Okay, so we can kill it. And it's really actually quite simple to do. Okay, and then if we can't do that, then we got to fix all the defects that are in it. And some of these defects are well known. I've showed you a couple of them. Okay? We also need to work on improving the public school system. What I want to do is create fully open enrollment public schools. Everywhere. Okay? If you don't like your school up here in Lago Vista and you want to go to Lake Travis ISD, there's no reason why that shouldn't happen. It's a negotiation between.
Why cannot we?
Why is it forbidden?
It's not forbidden, it's just not encouraged, and it actually, there is no statewide that basically lets the schools do that in some kind of a cooperative framework for the whole state.
It's just structure.
Yeah.
It's just structure.
Well, it's a neighborhood. We tried it later.
Yeah, I mean, you can try it locally,
Yeah.
but that's why you need regional cooperation. What you basically need are several ISDs getting together to load balance, okay? Do stuff like that. All right, ditch the STAR test. Okay, we don't need the STAR test. They already use things like the MAP test or the Nation's Report Card. They got enough testing in place to track academic achievement. We don't need the STAR test. The only reason we have the STAR test is because Texas felt like they had to invent it. Well, yeah, and there's a whole bit of money behind. And by the way, we get rid of the STAR test. Guess what? We get rid of all those vendors. All that money. That's how we shrink. That's how we shrink the government. That's how we shrink the government. Okay? Streamline the Texas Education Code and shrink the TEA. Okay? Because we don't need them if we get rid of all those rules and regulations that aren't funded and that are holding us back. So improve that. Okay? And then, and you didn't fix the. You didn't put in.
Sorry, next time I'll just do your whole slideshow.
Yeah.
How would that be?
No, I sent you a later version where I had fixed the animation and you didn't do it. All right.
No, you didn't. Whatever.
Okay.
Just go on without the animation.
Yeah, okay. All right,
Too
whatever.
distracting anyway.
I know. All right, so in the area of academics, I think I've already told you this, but in 3 years, I want to raise the level of reading proficiency, raise the level of math proficiency, okay? Make all students take these SAT, ACT, and raise the state averages. We can do this with known best practices. We're not reinventing the wheel because there are already people who do this. We're just not doing it in Texas. Okay? And then use accountability tracking to accomplish these goals. And after 3 years, raise the bar, make it a community activity. Get each community, local community involved in planning and executing an improvement plan. So the community is directly involved. Okay? All right, and then when it comes to funding, rebalance the funding profile. We have to bump up the state. What we don't want to do is we don't want to take away the amount of local funding, but we want the state to step up and raise its funding level to what it used to be before Abbott took office, which was an equal partnership. And if we'll do that, and then, by the way, that's quite doable. I've run the numbers. There's plenty of money out there. We're just not putting it here. So the sources of money are out there, and my basic strategy is spread the joy. So you bump up the sales tax a little bit. You execute inside the franchise tax. You put an educated workforce subtax, raise it up a little bit. Okay, tap the surplus funds that are coming in. We're going to have a huge surplus again. The rainy day funds and the savings from shrinking the government. Remember, we're going to shrink the TEA and a bunch of other things. We're going to doge the TEA, basically. Okay, and at the same, and what the numbers tell me is we can do that and reduce property taxes by 20% or more. And it ain't that hard. Okay. So there's a lot of people out there who can say, yeah, lower property taxes, yeah, and kill the schools because they think that's what Abbott wants. But no, you can have it both. You can have it both ways. You can lower property taxes, okay, and you can raise the state share. Okay, fix the Robin Hood. Right? We know that doesn't work. And yet it's been dragging on for years and years. It didn't work when my kids went to school. Okay, and then really what my mission is for the next year is educate the public. Okay, so take this message out, get it out there, but not just to people like you all. What I do is I go speak, I gave one of these talks at the Bernie Tea Party meeting, or go to the Kiwanis Club meeting, okay? Get out there in the red areas and make this pitch to the conservatives because they will get on board. And as soon as they get on board, then they'll vote differently. As soon as they start to understand what their government, state government, is doing to them with specifics, okay? Not generalities. I think I'll skip this. I was going to show you examples of how best practices can be used to improve reading proficiency by looking at what is going on in Louisiana and Mississippi, who have reversed the trend. Oh, by the way, the new saying in Mississippi is, with regard to reading proficiency, is thank God for Texas. Yeah, it's true. It used to be the other way around, right? But not anymore. Okay, and then the same thing happens. Okay, so what they're doing there, I'll tell you more about that later. And then the same thing is true in math. What are they doing? Blah, 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 blah. And blah. Okay, forget it. Let me stop there and see if you have any questions or things you want to talk about. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I've got a question about the Ten Commandments in school.
Yes.
In light of Ken Paxton's personal behavior, shouldn't that be 5 commandments?
I think if we must put commandments, I can get by with 2.
Right. Yeah.
There's only 2 we need.
Be a good person.
Well, or everything I learned about living in society, I learned in kindergarten. That kind of stuff. But yeah, we shouldn't be doing that anyway. All right,
So we're gonna change it up a little bit because of the time, and any remaining questions, see Herb during the social hour, and he'll be able to answer your questions.
if I stick around that long.
You have to.
I have to stick around that long. Yes, ma'am.
We have 2 more drop-in candidates,
Oh.
so we're gonna get to them as well.
Okay. Any